Hi, I'm Gavin, and today we're going to look at a very special camera. It's called the Contact RTS, and here it is. Now, Contact's a really famous brand. It's been around since the 30s. Basically, it's a sub-label sort of Zeiss, the lens manufacturer. Basically, obviously, Zeiss need a platform for their lenses. Contact was one of those platforms. Incredibly famous, huge history. I won't go into all of it today, but contact cameras were around in the 30s and the 40s. In fact, Robert Capa shot those incredible photographs on the D-Day landings on a contact camera. After the war, sort of things sort of slowed down with contact. Obviously, lots of problems with German, lots of problems licensing rights and stuff, collapsed and things like that. So they slowly stopped making cameras, and Zeiss carried on making lenses. So at some point in sort of the 70s, which was like a 10-year gap between the last camera that Contact had made, Zeiss decided to sort of jump back into the SLR game, the camera game again. Now, it's an interesting thing. At that point in time, Japan had literally post-war gone nuts with electronics and were by far, the leaders in that field. And Europe, the Zeiss Contact, were a bit behind. Now, what they did something incredibly clever, and I can't think of another time than this was sort of done really early on. Somebody up at Zeiss decided we want to do the contact camera. We want to do a contact camera, but we probably don't have. We can make the lenses. We can do part of it. We can oversee it. We know what we want, but we probably don't have the skill sets to do what was needed, which is electronics. So they licensed the contact name to Yashica. Now Yashica were well ahead of the game with electronics. They have amazing early electronic cameras. So the electronics and internals are Yashica. And then this is the even smarter step that they did with these cameras. They approached Porsche. Now Porsche obviously was really well known for its racing cars and its cars. But I think this was the beginning of what was called, I think it's just FA Porsche, which is when they started to go further into industrial design. So fundamentally, they brought together Zeiss optics, Yashica's electronic prowess, and then the industrial design of Porsche all together. And this created the new Contact range of cameras. And they sort of showed it at Photokina, I think, in 1974, and then it was available to the public from 1975 onwards, and it caused a huge sensation. It's one of those times when, because you've got three groups that know exactly, they're experts in what they do. This all comes together. I mean, it's one of the first times. Cameras are a funny thing, aren't they? I mean, it's not always about how it mechanically works. It's how you can hold it from a design point of view. And the Contact's design is quite, well, it's interesting. It's designed for you. It's designed for you to use it. And it's designed to do things quickly. And because of the electronics from Yashica, it's designed to respond to what you want it to do. Like today we have, you want instant response. You don't like slow things. So they devised a marketing platform called RTS, Real Time System. And this was all about being an intuitive camera with a professional who wants to get that shot. And basically, I mean, we'll do a close-up of this, but I'll just go over the immediate features of what they did. A lot of the cameras sort of had their metering systems. I think a lot of them still did, built into the actual shutter button. They didn't do that. And it's really clever. They put the metering system as a button on the front so that you don't half press to take a photograph. You basically meter from this sort of front button here, and then you take a photograph. They also, because of the speed of the electromagnetic release to release the shutter in this, the actual press, there's no on and off. the actual press here is like a millimeter. So you can literally, it's a feather-like touch, and you can fire the camera. What they also did was, so the metering's here. They also, it's an automatic aperture priority camera. So you've got your on this side over here, we've got the shutter control, and it's all beautifully sort of laid in. The winder handle sits inside the actual dial itself, and then you've got your exposure compensation here, and then you've got your ISO DIN on the top there to adjust. It's really simple. So as I said, it's an aperture priority camera and it's manual focus. It goes up to 1/2000th for shutter speed. Internally, obviously it's precisely built. You can tell when you press the button what it is. But then obviously the other part of this, so that's Porsche have designed a beautiful camera. Yashica have put cracking electronics on. And then there's the actual sort of like crown jewels. On the front, they created the CY mount, and the CY mount was Contact Yashica. And then they created a special range, not special range, it was a full range of Zeiss lenses to go on the front. So there's basically two titans of camera lenses, like mainstream, and that's Leica and Zeiss. Now Zeiss's history with lenses is just ridiculous. Planars, distagons, these are the foundations of modern lenses in many ways. And I always like compare it. It's like looking at Leica lenses and Nikon, and all. They do make great lenses, but when it comes to this sort of level, it's sort of like Leica and Zeiss. So you've got like two Ferraris, one's red, one's green. That's literally the only difference between these things. It's all about color rendition and coatings. The actual acuity, the sharpness of the lenses is insane. So, and then mechanically fantastic. So yeah, so you've got an amazing package with this camera. It's got, it's one of these things where when you start to use it, it's quite heavy. When you start to use it, you sort of really appreciate what they did. And it's just a great thing to take photographs. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look around the features properly, and then we'll come back and I'll just finish off. Okay, so here we are. It's a top-down look at the Contax RTS. Now, if you go across the body, sort of from the left to the right-hand side, I'll just talk you through the parts. So this bit here, this is the shutter speed control. Now, as you can sort of see here, hopefully this stays in focus for you, there's an A there. This means it's in aperture priority mode. And all you basically need to do to change speeds is you just move it around. Now this is quite intuitive because there's a little lump on it, and if you were for some reason wanted to change shutters from auto to a different shutter speed, you just move it with your thumb. So this is sort of, as I was discussing a bit earlier on about the design aspects of this camera, it's really sort of ergonomically designed for you. You just pop it all the way back, and there it is, back on its default position. So you can only go away all the way around and then back again. And it's quite, you can see it's sort of been designed with your thumb in mind. Now, here's your film winder. Just sits at the top, and then that snaps in and nicely sits inside the sort of knurled space, hole here. Okay, across the top, further on, flash mount. Now, there's a couple of, I've got a couple of flashes for it, but there's some really good flashes Contax made for this. I don't do a huge amount of flash photography, to tell you the truth. And then over on the, moving across here, this is your ISO dial, or was it DIN? It's the ASA, the old version. And you basically just lift it up, move it round, and drop it down on what you need. So I'll put it to 400. There you go. And then underneath this, down here, you can see you've got, I hope you can see this, stay in focus. Here's your exposure compensation. So if you actually hold it down, you don't lift it and move it round, there's your exposure compensation. Okay, last part here, there's that shutter button, and here's your film crank. Now, you've got a battery test there, little button on the back. Hopefully you stay with that. Just see it now. There we go. And then you've got your counter here. So I'm just going to wind it forward. And just very gently, here we go. That's literally no touch at all and it's fired. Okay, so I'll turn it over. We'll look down the barrel. Hopefully, it should be tricky for the camera to stay in focus on. But it's done it. Okay, so what have we got here? Self-timer here. The lens release button is here. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is where the metering button is. So you basically just tap that and the camera starts to meter. And this is really nice because there's a feature inside it. So if I've just taken a shot and I've not wound on, and then basically I pull the camera back out of my bag again and I touch that, that just jumps to the very top over the 2000 marker inside. Just to let you know, you can't take a photo, and then it drops to B, so you can't take a photograph because you haven't obviously wound your film on. So it'll only act if there's film there ready to be shot, you know, so it's interlinked with the crank. Okay, over the other side here, we've got there we go. Lock up your shutter, lock up your mirror, mirror lock up. Then you've got remote release here. And then you've got a depth of field preview at the bottom. So you can see what your depth of field is going to look like. And that's really the whole camera. It's that simple. On the front here, I've got, what's that one? I've got a Zeiss 28. I'll just take the lens off to show you. Pull that off, press the button in, off it comes. Back on again, red dot, and then you reconnect. Mine's a bit loose because it's been declicked. Some idiot declicked it. Anyway, it still works. And okay, because it's on the back here. Viewfinder, as I said before, we've got our little release here. And to get film into it, lift up, pops. Now this is one of those, I'm going to put the cap on the front before I flip it up. Hopefully this stays in focus. Now this is one of those sort of features that seems like nothing, but actually is quite clever. And I think Leica has it in the R cameras. I've got one, but it's slightly different. When you load the film, you basically just put it in here. Now, on some later cameras, you've got these like fiddly teeth, like slots, and you drop in the film into the slots. This doesn't. This is great for loading film. You bring it over and you just slide it into one of those, and then you're in. It's so quick, I know, and it is quite funny because the Leica the R cameras, theirs is reverse. You have to put the film tab in that way, and then it sort of spools over. This, you just drop it there and go around. It's really, really quick to load. I think later on as cameras got sort of the production methodology ramped up, they sort of got rid of things like this because it's cheaper just to make a spool with loads of slots as opposed to this lovely thing here. But it works really well. I've just grabbed a roll of film quickly just to show you this in action. So here you go. What's that one? Vision 2 IS 500T. Anyway, old school. Right, pops in here. You pull it over. Pop that in there. And you're done. And then you crank on. I'm not going to wind it in because that's a fresh roll. But literally, that's how hard it is to load film on the camera. It's really quick for a fast change if you want to change, you know, your film quickly. Let's pop that out of there. And we'll pull that back. Okay, once your film's in there, snap it down, wind forward. Oh, I've got the cap on. There you go. And it's got a really nice throw here as well. It's a great movement. And that is the Contax RTS. Great camera. Okay, so this is the RTS 1. Quick look through the viewfinder. Now, across the top, you can see what the current aperture is, and down the right-hand side, you've got the shutter speed. Now, I'm in auto mode, so what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm just going to touch the meter, and you should see the metering light up. And then if I just change the aperture, you should, across the top, see the aperture change. I'm going to move the camera too much. Now, so they're very basic. If we switch to manual mode, just do that, you see the green bar on the right hand side. Now, what that's doing is it's sort of giving you, it's telling you what you're currently set at on the shutter internally. Now, if I press the meter, it'll give you a sort of suggested reading. So let's get down there. You should hit. If I was back in auto mode, yeah. So it sort of gives you a clue, even though it's really fundamental. And that's basically it. That's what's inside the RTS One's viewfinder. Very simple, very clean, very, very usable. So there you have it. That's sort of like a run around the body of a Contax RTS and with a few notes. Buying them, they are available, but they are old. So just be wary of this. They are old cameras now, I think 30, 40 years old. 1975 they came out, so you could potentially pick one up from back then and would be in 2023, so think about that. There are people that can repair them. There's a few out there, get them serviced and things like that. So that's still possible. Hard to find. Are they worth it? You know, it's interesting. I've got a lot of cameras and I always keep coming back to these. There's something about them. I think the design that Porsche put in, I actually just say this. This is the only SLR in the Contax range, the original RTS, that was designed by Porsche. You see a lot of stuff online saying that the later ones were designed by Porsche. That's not true. Everything else afterwards, like Porsche set up the template and created it, everything afterwards is based off that, so they're not designed by Porsche. I believe they got Porsche back to do the T1, which was their point and shoot type camera. But you can tell with these that, you know, they are lovely to use. They're great cameras. They are very, they're very solid, but they are, you know, a little bit heavy. But you know, this was just diving off a point for me for quite a few Contax cameras, because the entire range going down the line with this is the foundation, this camera is the foundation. They're just astonishing things. I mean, it's the ergonomics, as I stated at the beginning. They're just so simple to use and you can just get great results. There are a few problems, obviously, with the shutter button being so featherweight, but once you get used to it, you should never leave a camera cocked anyway. So, you know, you with this, you have to get into the routine, and when you take your shot, you know, hopefully your last shot of the day, don't cock it, so that when you put it in your bag, it doesn't fire. Because I've had it when I first started using this, I used to lose quite a few frames to accidentally firing. Anyway, if you've got any comments, put them in the box below. Thanks for watching. As I said, I've got a few more Contax on the shelf out there, so I'll go through those as well and take you on the Contax journey. So thank you for watching.